Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, let me introduce myself. My name is Ade Rinaldi and my ID number is 190-1x064. In this video, I'm gonna talk about research and educational research. I'm gonna talk about the definition and types of research. And after that, I'm gonna talk about the definition, the approaches, methodologies, and examples of educational research. First, what is research? Research is a creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. It involves the collection, organization, and analysis of information to increase understanding of a topic or issue. Next, types of research. Generally, research is classified based on the objective the researcher intends to accomplish. First, basic or fundamental research. Basic research is aimed at generating fundamental knowledge and theoretical understanding about basic human and other natural processes. The purpose of basic or fundamental research is generation of new knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It is not directed toward the solution of immediate practical problems. Basic research is usually conducted by using the most rigorous research methods, for example, experimental, under tightly controlled laboratory conditions. Next, number 2, applied research. Applied research is focused on answering real-world practical questions in order to provide relatively immediate solutions. It is performed in relation to actual problems and under the conditions in which they are found in practice. Topics for applied research are often driven by current problems in education and by policymakers' concerns. Most of the educational researchers are applied researchers whose objectives are to develop generalization about teaching and learning process, instructional materials, the behavior of children, ways to motivate, and so on. Number 3, action research. Action research is focused on solving specific problems that local practitioners face in their schools and communities. It is conducted by teachers, administrators, counselors, coaches, and other educational professionals trying to solve their very specific problems. Action research is the research undertaken by practitioners so that they may improve their practice. It helps a practitioner to perceive, understand, and assess the situation, and it further facilitates a systematic analysis and working out plausible reasons for the unsatisfactory condition. With action research, a practitioner can try out alternative strategies till the problem is solved satisfactorily. Last, number 4 is evaluation research. Evaluation research, or simply evaluation, specifically involves determining the worth, merit, or qualities of an evaluation object such as an educational program. Evaluation research is subdivided into two types, formative evaluation and summative evaluation. When the primary purpose of an evaluation is to lead the judgments about how a program can be improved, it's called a formative evaluation. And when the primary objective of an evaluation is to lead to judgments about whether the program is effective and whether it should be continued, it's called a summative evaluation. Okay, next we're gonna talk about what is educational research. Educational research refers to the systematic collection and analysis of data related to the field of education. Research may involve a variety of methods and various aspects of education, including student learning, teaching methods, teacher training, and classroom dynamics. Next, approaches of educational research. There are different approaches to educational research. These approaches have different purposes which influence the nature of the respective research. The first approach to educational research is basic approach. Basic or academic research focus on the search for truth or the development of educational theory. Researchers with this background design studies that can test, refine, modify, or develop theories. Generally, These researchers are affiliated with an academic institution and are performing this research as part of their graduate or doctoral work. Number 2. Applied approach. The pursuit of information that can be directly applied to practice is aptly known as applied or contractual research. Researchers in this field are trying to find solutions to existing educational problems. The approach is much more utilitarian as it strives to find information that will directly influence practice. Applied researchers are commissioned by a sponsor and are responsible for addressing the needs presented by their employer. The goal of this research is to determine the applicability of educational theory and principles by testing hypotheses within specific settings. Okay, next, the methodology of educational research. The basis for educational research is the scientific method. The scientific method uses directed question and manipulation of variables to systematically find information about the teaching and learning process. In this scenario, questions are answered by the analysis of data that is collected specifically for the purpose of answering this question. Hypotheses are written and subsequently proved or disproved by data which leads to the creation of new hypotheses. The two main types of data that are used under this method are qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative research. Qualitative research uses the data which is descriptive in nature. This method is not only about what people think, but also why they think so. Tools that educational researchers use in collecting qualitative data include observations, conducting interviews, conducting document analysis, and analyzing participant products such as journals, diaries, images, or blogs. Types of qualitative research. First, case study. As the name suggests, it is used for explaining an organization or an entity. This type of research is used within a number of areas like education, social science, and similar. This method is one of the simplest ways of conducting research as it involves a deep dive and thorough understanding of the data collection methods and inferring the data. The example of a topic or title you can use in this type of qualitative research is case studies of 5th grade student modeling in science through programming, comparison of modeling practice, and conversation. Next, number 2, ethnography. Ethnographic research is the most in-depth observational method that studies people in their naturally occurring environment. This method requires the researchers to adapt to the target audience's environment, which could be anywhere from an organization to a city or any remote location. This research designs aim to understand the cultures, challenges, motivations, and settings that occur. This type of research method can last from a few days to a few years, as it involves in-depth observation and collecting data on these grounds. For the simple example, observing a high school classroom. Researchers, when they do observing a high school classroom, might observe the social and cultural dynamics of a high school classroom over the course of a month. In this environment, the researchers closely watch how the students interact with the teacher and with each other and seeks to identify any unique social dynamics. Next, number 3, phenomenological research. Phenomenological research, describing how any one participant experiences a specific event, is the goal of the phenomenological method of research. This method utilizes interviews, observation, and surveys to gather information from subjects. Phenomenology is highly concerned with how participants feel about things during an event or activity. For the example, the topic you can use like using phenomenology to conduct environmental education research, experience, and issues. Next, number 4, narrative research. The narrative research method occurs over a long period for compiling the data. It takes a sequence of events to form a cohesive story. However, similar to a story narrative, It takes a subject from a starting point and reviews different situations of life. Here, the researchers conducts in-depth interviews and reads various documents. Moreover, it also reviews the events that largely impact the personality of an individual. Sometimes, interviews are conducted even after weeks, months, or years. Nevertheless, this method requires the outcomes to be presented in a short story with themes. For the example, why school-based narrative inquiry in physical education research and international perspective? That's the topic you can use for narrative research. Next, number 5, historical research. The historical method describes past events to understand present scenarios and predict future choices. It answers the research question based on a hypothetical idea. Later, this technique uses multiple resources to test the idea for any potential challenges. Lastly, the historical method presents the findings in the form of a biography. For example, Pearl Harbor Legacy. Quantitative research. Quantitative research uses data that is numerical and is based on the assumption that the numbers will describe a single reality. Statistics are often applied to find relationships between variables. Types of quantitative research. First, descriptive research. Descriptive research is used to understand a phenomenon, a situation, or a population. Unlike experimental research, descriptive research does not involve the manipulation of certain variables. Rather, it seeks only to observe and measure the variables in order to investigate them. This research design is used when trying to identify characteristics, categories, and trends. The most common methods of collecting descriptive research is through case studies, observations, and surveys. For the example, the topic you can use quantitative research, attitudes, and research training perceptions among master's level students. Next, number 2, experimental research. Experimental research, also known as the true experimentation, aims to measure the effect of one or more independent variables on one or more dependent variables with the use of the scientific method. This is done by manipulating the independent variable to study its effect on the dependent variable. This experimental research design involves conducting a set of procedures to test the hypothesis of the study. For example, teaching experimental design to elementary school pupils in Greece. Next, number 3, single subject research. Single subject research is a type of quantitative research that involves studying in detail the behavior of each of a small number of participants. Note that the term single subject does not mean that only one participant is studied. It is more typical for there to be somewhere between 2 and 2 participants. This is why single subject research designs are sometimes called small n designs, where n is the statistical symbol for the sample size. For the example, single subject research applications to special education. Next, number 4, causal comparative research. In causal comparative research, the goal is to discover a cause and effect relationship between 2 variables, one dependent and one independent. The researcher has no control over the independent variable, and thus any relationship between the 2 variables might be suggestive at best. For the example, the topic or the title you can use like the impact of troops to teachers participants on student achievement, a causal comparative study. Next, number 5, correlational research. Correlational research is conducted to establish a relationship between 2 closely connected entities and how one impacts to other and what are the changes that are eventually observed. This research method is carried out to give value to naturally occurring relationships, and a minimum of 2 different groups are required to conduct this quantitative research method successfully. Researchers use this quantitative research designed to correlate 2 or more variables using mathematical analysis method, patterns, relationships, and trends between variables are concluded as they exist in their original setup. The impact of one of these variables on the other is observed along with how it changes the relationship between the two variables. For the example, the topic you can use like student proficiency in Spanish taught by native and non-native Spanish instructors, a quantitative correlational study. Next, number 6, meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a statistical analysis that combines the results of multiple scientific studies. Meta-analysis can be performed when there are multiple scientific studies addressing the same question, with each individual study reporting measurements that are expected to have some degree of error. The aim then is to use approaches from the statistic to derive a poor estimate close to the unknown common truth based on how this error is perceived. For the example, a meta-analysis of college students' physical activity behaviors.